But you know what, you guys? Someone has to do the dirty work, and it's gonna be me. So this is episode 98 covering the WNBA CBA, because we did just get another article about the situation, and there was a little bit of new information that I wanted to share with you guys.
Will we have a WNBA season? That's not a rhetorical question anymore. We're past the deadline. We're in what's called status quo territory. And the silence from both sides is deafening. But here's what makes this different from every other labor dispute you've watched. The players sent their proposal a month ago. The league hasn't even responded. Not officially, not a counteroffer, not a rejection, nothing.
The league believes the proposal didn't warrant a response, since it wasn't that different from the past ones the union was, I cannot read today. The union has submitted. And instead, sources told ESPN it's waiting for the players to submit what it would consider a more realistic proposal. So basically, the league is saying, without saying it, because they haven't.
That's the reality.
The league looked at the players' proposal and decided it wasn't worth a response. Now, you might think that's just negotiation tactics, playing hardball, but sources told ESPN the league is waiting for what it considers a more realistic proposal. Translation, they're not budging, they've drawn their line in the sand, and they're daring the players to cross it. The proposal on their desk right now, it includes a 30% gross revenue split, and the league's position is clear without them having to say it publicly. We're not doing that. Figure it out.
But we're not hearing specifically, like, we're not even entertaining the players' proposal, but that's kind of what they're saying here. So the players made a proposal, and I'm going to take you guys back. The last proposal that the WNBPA made to the WNBA was kind of like, if we do what you guys are asking, if we give you this money, if we give you this revenue split, we could lose $700 million. Now the WNBPA came back and they were like, well, that's not true. Open the books. Tell us how much you're actually making, because we don't think that it's going to cost you.
And that's where this gets complicated, because everything we're hearing from the league side isn't coming through official statements or press conferences. It's leaked information, carefully placed in articles from reporters with league sources. The players are out here on social media, doing interviews, putting rats outside NBA stores, telling everyone the league's offer is lipstick on a pig. Meanwhile, the league is operating in the shadows, letting reporters do the talking for them. But here's what we do know from those leaks. The last time the WNBA put numbers on the table, they warned that meeting the players' demands could cost them $700 million. $700 million. The players called that a lie. They demanded the league open their books, show the real financials. The league refused. So now we're stuck in this stalemate where nobody trusts anybody, and the clock is running out.
That's literally what a negotiation is, one player told ESPN. I'm gonna push back on this just a little bit, because I do think that both sides need to find a compromise, obviously. However, if we look at what their deal was in 2020, and we look at the current deal on the table from the league's side, max salary players would make over $1 million. Minimum salary is now going to be higher than the maximum salary was in the last CBA deal. Like, there is actually so much that the W is providing. And they're also offering a 70% net revenue split. And so to say that there wasn't compromise on that side is kind of crazy.
Let's talk about what's actually on the table, because the narrative has gotten twisted. The league's current offer would make maximum salary players earn over $1 million. The minimum salary in this new deal would be higher than the maximum salary was in the 20. That's not an incremental increase. That's a massive jump. They're also offering a 70% net revenue split, which sounds great until you understand the difference between net and gross revenue. The players want gross revenue, that means before expenses. The league is offering net revenue, which means after expenses, and here's where the ownership structure matters. The WNBA owns 40% of their own league. The NBA owns another 40%. Outside investors own 16%. This isn't like the NBA where the league can just negotiate with team owners. The WNBA has to answer to multiple stakeholders, including the NBA, which has its own financial priorities.
Months have been the insistence that the league's proposals are so far from adequate as to be insulting. That's not a usual tact for a union to take in such disputes, but sources outside the WNBPA have told ESPN that the union might benefit by starting to talk more optimistically about the wins it appears to have even before the deal is done. And I actually appreciate the fact that ESPN is calling this out, because it's one of those things, like, I don't know, the WNBA in its coverage is still just
housing. That's supposedly one of the sticking points. And honestly, if this negotiation falls apart over housing, the league doesn't deserve to exist. The league's position is that with salaries going up to where they're proposing, players can afford their own housing. The players want the league to provide it, especially for 10-day contracts, hardship contracts, players getting traded mid-season. These are legitimate concerns. But they're also details that every other professional league figures out without canceling their season. The fact that housing is even being discussed as a potential deal breaker tells you how far apart these sides really are. Because if they were close on the revenue split, housing would be a footnote. You'd hammer it out in an afternoon. But when you can't agree on the fundamental question of how much money players deserve, everything else becomes a battle.
It's one of those things, like, I don't know, the WNBA in its coverage is still just so sensitive, and I feel like if you say anything that's like the slightest bit of criticism, people just, like, you're horrible, you're not siding with the players, like, you don't think, it's like, you hate women. It's not that at all. The thing is, yes, the things that they have been posting on social media, the statements that they've been putting out, the rat outside the NBA store, all of these things leave a bad taste in fans' mouth. And also at the same time, at the end of all of this, both parties are going to have to work together whether they like it or not. The players and the league are going to have to work together after this. So all of this, like, name calling, little jabs on social media, all of this stuff, I mean, I probably wouldn't want to burn the relationship with the people that I'm working for and working with when I know that I'm going to be going back into the office.
Now here's where ESPN actually called out the Players Association, and this matters. They published an article with 4 ways a deal could get done. And one of those ways was for the union to lean into the wins, because the players' public strategy has been to trash everything the league offers. Every proposal is a slap in the face. Every offer is insulting. And ESPN is saying, look, that's not how unions typically operate in labor disputes. You're supposed to highlight your victories, show your members that progress is being made, build momentum toward a deal. Instead, the WNBPA is out here acting like the league offered them a $5,000 raise when they're actually looking at career-changing money for most players. And here's the problem with that strategy. You're painting yourself into a corner. If you spend months telling everyone the league's offer is garbage, and then you eventually sign a deal that looks a lot like that offer, what's your explanation? How do you walk that back? Nneka Ogwumike did an interview with Time magazine where she said she wants to see more WNBA millionaires. She called the league's proposal of $1 million max salary basically a decimal compared to what's being made. But what's being made by who? The NBA. Because if we're comparing WNBA salaries to NBA salaries, without accounting for revenue differences, we're not having a serious conversation.
Victories, and they have had a lot of victories. Like I said, the salaries are up a lot. And then this last bullet point on how they can get a deal done is reestablish trust. In 2020, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert and Union President Nneka Ogwumike sat side by side and announced an 8-year CBA. They both wore blue, Ogwumike in a royal blue dress and Engelbert in a navy blazer, as they shared the news of their agreement on Good Morning America. Could you see that happening now? I'm just not so sure. And that's what I got.
And that brings us to the real issue, public perception. When this started, fans were overwhelmingly on the players' side. Pay them more. They deserve it. The league is exploding in popularity, but something shifted. The players kept pushing, kept demanding, kept saying nothing was good enough, and fans started asking questions. Wait, they're offering over $1 million for max players and that's not enough? They're offering 70% of net revenue and that's insulting? The swing in public opinion is real. You can see it in social media comments, in article responses, in the way people are talking about this now. There's a growing sentiment that maybe the players are the ones who aren't compromising. Maybe the league has actually come a long way. And the players are overplaying their hand. That's dangerous for the union, because public pressure is one of their biggest weapons in a labor dispute. If they lose that, What leverage do they have left?
Really drained from this, and I've been wanting to cover more NBA stuff, and I think I'm gonna get back into that because I would like to cover the basketball. So that's the update that we have there. Nobody is still talking, but it's like I said in my last video, it's definitely time to panic. The clock is running out. There are so many things to do during this off season. This has just been such a mess, and something that I failed to mention in my last episode is World Cup is also this summer. There's arguably the most popular sport in the world. Not even arguably. The most popular sport in the world is having their biggest event this summer, and it's happening in the United States of America. Not saying that soccer fans are in the same category as WNBA fans, but there are other things happening this summer. Baseball also is the most popular than it's ever been. Baseball is starting up soon. That also goes through the summer. The WNBA isn't gonna have this like summer of just like all eyes on the W because there's nothing else to watch. They're playing with fire right now. Both sides are playing with fire, and it's not looking good. And I just don't understand how anybody can think that it would be okay to play around with the momentum and the popularity that you currently have, because everything is dwindling. And if you don't think it's dwindling, reality check. We can look. I don't even want to bring it up or share it here, but like, look at the unrivaled numbers. They're really bad. If anybody thinks that the W can just survive not having a season because players are just going to go play an unrivaled, like, sure, you can continue to be a better basketball player, but the fans are not going to follow. There's a million things to watch this summer. Only the hardcore fans are going to lose.
Here's what makes this entire situation so frustrating. Both sides are playing with fire, and they don't seem to realize the house is burning down around them. The WNBA just had its best season ever. Caitlin Clark brought in millions of new fans. Ratings were up across the board. Attendance broke records. This was supposed to be the moment where the league capitalized on that momentum, expanded the season, added teams, locked in bigger media deals. Instead, we're sitting here in late January with no CBA, no schedule, no certainty about whether there will even be a season. And every day that passes, the momentum dies a little more. Because here's what the league and the players both seem to be forgetting. Casual fans don't care about labor disputes. They just want to watch basketball. And if there's no basketball to watch, they'll watch something else. World Cup is happening this summer in the United States. The most popular sport in the world is going to dominate the news cycle. And the WNBA is going to be a footnote about a canceled season due to a labor dispute most people don't understand. Baseball is more popular than it's ever been, and their season runs through the summer. The WNBA doesn't have a monopoly on summer sports anymore. They're competing for attention, and right now, they're losing. Look at Unrivaled, that 3-on-3 league that's supposed to be the alternative if the WNBA season doesn't happen. Their ratings are terrible, like shockingly bad. If anyone thinks the W can just skip a season and fans will stick around for whatever alternative basketball is available, they're delusional. Hardcore fans will watch. The people who would watch WNBA games at 3 in the morning will tune in. But the casual fans who just discovered the league because of Caitlin Clark, they're gone, and they're not coming back. And here's the thing about the players. They're not a monolithic group. The head of the Players Association isn't even an active player anymore. There are absolutely players in that union right now who are terrified of losing a season. Players who aren't superstars, who don't have overseas contracts, who are counting on this being their breakthrough year. Players who are looking at $1 million offer and thinking, please, just sign the deal. This is life-changing money for me. But they can't say that publicly. Because if you're in a union, you stand with the union. You don't break ranks. You don't undermine the negotiation. So they're stuck, watching their careers tick away, while the leadership plays hardball over revenue splits and housing stipulations. And the longer this drags on, the more resentment builds. Not just between the players and the league, but within the Players Association itself. Breanna Stewart said she wants to meet face-to-face with the league's owners. No lawyers, no middlemen, just the key stakeholders in a room, talking about the real issues. And you know what? That might be the only way this gets resolved. Because right now, both sides are so entrenched in their positions, so committed to their public narratives, that backing down feels like losing. They need a reset. They need someone to walk into that room and say, okay, what do we actually need to make this work? The players need to feel like they're getting a fair share of the revenue the league is generating. The league needs to feel like they're not committing financial suicide by giving away money they don't have. Those aren't incompatible goals, but they require both sides to be honest about the numbers, honest about the league's financial reality, and honest about what's actually sustainable long-term. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. The WNBA still isn't profitable for most teams. It's growing, it's getting better, it's on an upward trajectory. But it's not the NBA, it doesn't print money. And if the league agrees to a revenue split that looks good on paper but bankrupts half the teams in 3 years, there won't be a league left to play. The players will have won the battle and lost the war. At the same time, if the league lowballs the players so badly that they strike, if there's no season, if all this momentum evaporates, the league will have protected their bottom line while destroying their future. Because the next time a Caitlin Clark comes along, the next time there's a chance to break through to mainstream audiences, fans will remember. They'll remember that the league couldn't get its act together when it mattered most. So where does this end? Honestly, I don't. Multiple sources have said both sides understand they need to find a compromise. But understanding you need a compromise and actually making one are two very different things. The league is waiting for the players to submit a more realistic proposal. The players are waiting for the league to respond to the one they already sent. And in the meantime, the season that should be starting in a few months is in serious jeopardy. My prediction? This goes down to the wire. Someone blinks at the last possible second. Probably the players, because they have more to lose in the short term. They'll get a deal that's better than the 2020 CBA, but not as good as what they're asking for now. The league will claim victory. The players will claim victory. And everyone will pretend like this disaster of a negotiation was actually a success. But the damage will be done. The relationship between the players and the league is fractured. The trust is gone. And the fans who were just starting to fall in love with the WNBA will have spent months watching this dysfunction play out in public. That's not how you build a league. That's how you kill momentum. So here's my question for you. Who's more at fault here? Is it the players for demanding too much too soon? For overplaying their hand when they finally have leverage? Or is it the league for refusing to invest in the product when it's finally breaking through? For nickel and diming the athletes who are driving all this new interest? You can't say both. Pick a side. Tell me in the comments who you think needs to give in. Because one of them has to. And it needs to happen soon, before this entire season goes up in smoke.